It's not going to last long, though, they tell me. If you guys missed last week, you missed a lot, but it's okay. So last week what we talked about, and I'm just going to recap for those of you who weren't here, we talked about how this summer we've been praying that we're going to baptize 50 people at our baptisms. So what I asked everybody to do is to think of 3 names of people that they know that need to know Jesus, that they would be willing to pray for, that they would be willing to give time up for every day to pray for to come to know Jesus. And then what we did is we came and we pinned all their names to the cross. So that's what you're seeing here is all these names are people that we're praying for every day. And last week I ordered some stuff that I wanted to give you. So I've got these little cards right here. I'm going to give you one today before you leave. Don't leave without one of these, okay? And on the front, it has what our goal is as a church is to reach those that are far from Christ and teach them to be his lifelong followers. And then on the back has a place where you can write down those 3 names of the people that you have put on the cross, right? So that way you will always have those with you. Don't leave today unless you get one of these. That way you can carry it around with you wherever you go. Troy, can you turn me down just a little bit? I'm a little hot. And that way you can, don't laugh when I say that, Jim. Right, that's what I meant to say. So don't leave without one of those today. That way you can carry those names around with you every day. And it's just a reminder to you that you're praying for those people, that you're believing God will change the lives of those people. And if you weren't here last week and you want to add some names to the cross, I left some paper over there and some pens. And at any time today while we're singing or worshiping or whatever you want to do, you can come up and after service you can write those names and put them on the cross. And I'll make sure that you get one of these cards to carry with you. But today we're starting a brand new series, which is what I told you we were going to do last week. But today we're starting this new series, and it's called I Am. And what we're doing is we're looking at these I Am statements of Jesus. So a couple weeks ago, we just finished up talking about the things that Jesus told us not to do, and today we're going to start this series talking about I Am. How many of you have ever been really hungry? You've ever been really hungry, like you've been so hungry that you almost thought about eating Brussels sprouts, right? I like Brussels sprouts. We had this discussion this week. I actually like Brussels sprouts. They're really good. You can cut them up, put them in a skillet, a little bit of bacon grease, fry them up with some bacon grease, and put a little bit, anyway. So, you've been just really hungry. And I'm not talking about, you just missed your breakfast hungry. You've just been really, really hungry. And I was thinking about my own life, and I said, what's the hungriest I've ever been? What's the most hungry I've ever been in my life? And when I first started thinking about this, it was really easy to me to be able to say, I think the most hungry I've ever been was at the end of my 40-day fast. When I did a liquid fast for 40 days, it had to be the most hungry I've ever been in my life. And I thought about it, and I was like, really, at the end of those 40 days, I really wasn't that hungry. Because my body had kind of started to shut down and all that good stuff. And it was just, at the end of that time, it wasn't as bad as it was at the beginning. And some of you know that if you fast, those first few days are miserable, right? Those first few days of the fast are miserable. All of a sudden, there's people that are offering you your favorite foods everywhere you go. There's sales on your favorite foods when you go to the grocery store. It's just it's the most miserable time ever, and it's because you're trying to get your mind focused, right? And that's why I say when you fast, always have a purpose in mind. That way, when the world comes at you, when the enemy tries to talk you out of what you're doing, you always have a purpose that you're going for. You always remember what you're trying to do. So I thought about it. I said, okay, well, it can't be that when I was fasting that I was the hungriest. Maybe those first few days I was the hungriest. But when was the time that I was the hungriest in my life? And I was like, well, it could have been the day after, or that morning after I ran my first half marathon. I was like, man, I was pretty hungry. Because that morning, we were running in July, I believe it was, and it started at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's hot at 8 o'clock in the morning in July. And I was running, and I had trained myself really well, and I was 50 pounds lighter. And I was running, and about 2 miles in, I started getting really, really sick. Really sick. I felt miserable, and I'm pretty sure I had a heat stroke that morning, and James was with me, and he can tell you how horrible I looked, and it was miserable. But after it was over, I was hungry. So on the way home, we stopped at this place to eat. It's called Eaton Park, which is kind of like the Yankees version of Frisch's, right? Big Boy, it's kind of the same thing. It's all aimed by the same company, just a different name. And like that breakfast bar didn't stand a chance that morning. I mean, I was hungry. I asked the lady to bring me a pitcher of water and set it on the table, and she did. But I was hungry. I was ready to eat something, and I threw down. But I'm sure some of you have felt that way too. I'm sure that some of you have felt really hungry in your life, and there's probably some of you this morning that are like, dude, you just need to shut up because I got these awesome plans for lunch. I'm going to Leroy's. I'm going to have me a burger, and it's going to be awesome. How many of you this morning, though, would say you're hungry? Somebody raise their hand. Julie's hungry. She's going to be participating with me. All the rest of you might be get added to the list that's in my pocket. So I'm going to offer you something to eat. So I've got a spoonful of a donut or a spoonful of hand sanitizer. Which one do you want? Donut, that's a good choice. Anybody else hungry? Oh, Isaac, you're my hero. Don't be silly, Isaac. I see it all over your face already. Don't do it. Of course you don't eat that. Isaac took the hand. You're hungry? Isaac took the hand sanitizer. Somebody had to talk to him about that later. Donut or hand sanitizer? Donut. Anybody else? Nobody else hungry? Isaac, please don't eat the hand sanitizer. So when we're hungry, like food just kind of looks good, right? Like when you're really, really hungry, there comes this point where like stuff that you would never eat, it's all of a sudden it just sounds amazing. When you're fasting, you probably shouldn't watch the Food Network because all of a sudden like all that stuff they're cooking, you're like, man, that looks so good. I watch the Food Network while I'm fasting, and it makes me feel so much better. I'm like, oh man, when I'm done, I'm eating that. And I make a list, and it's like, this is what I'm eating as soon as I'm done. But it's all this good stuff. I drive my wife crazy watching it because she can't handle it. But I'm sure all of you have been at this place in your life where we're just hungry. We get hungry. We want something to just satisfy our cravings. We got to have something. And it comes to this point where even sometimes poison looks great to us when we're hungry. Like Isaac chose the hand sanitizer, so help him. But there's this point where even poison looks good. And some of the health food nuts in here today are like, that's right, you guys eat all that GMO food and all that nasty stuff. It's a poison to your body. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something even more than just on a food level. I mean, there's some of us, we hunger for so much more than just food. One thing that I learned when I was a youth pastor is that teenage girls, they hunger for love and compassion. Like teenage girls, they hunger for love and compassion. And that's the reason why I always told my teenage boys, you better never tell a girl you love her unless you mean it. Because teenage girls, they hunger for that. They hunger for that love and that affection. And what happens is they find a teenage boy that tells them, hey man, I love you. I love you so much. I just love you. And then what he says is, you know what? If you loved me, you know what you would do? And they feel that love and they hunger for that love and that compassion. And all of a sudden they find it. They find someone that's willing to give it to them. They find someone that's willing to dish that out. And they see that and they're like, oh, I love this. I've got everything I need. And he just starts to talk her into things that she would never imagine to do. And it becomes a poison to her life. It becomes a poison to what she's doing because he's not leading her down the right road. He's just leading her to the things that he wants. I'm not just going to stop there with the girls because if we're being really honest, we are raising a fatherless generation. These young teenage boys that we're raising, they are raised up and they want the same compassion. They want a man to teach them how to be a man. They want a man that shows them the way that they're supposed to go. They want to learn how to be a man. And the way that our society tells you that you become a man is just to start having sex. I mean, in young circles, the way that you define your manhood is by how many women you've slept with. And if you don't agree with that, just watch television. But that's what we're teaching our teenage boys. You become a man, and they long for that manhood. They long for it in so many ways. They're like, hey, I can feel this desire within me if I just start having sex with everybody that I run into. So they fulfill that desire. They fulfill their hunger. And I think most of us, I could agree, that's a poison to their lives. It ruins them not only now, but it ruins them in the future. And there's some of us that we feel like something's missing. So we have a hunger for some area of our lives or just some part of us that just doesn't feel complete. And we just want to figure out how we can fill that void, what we have to do to get there. And some of us, what we do is we turn to the bottle, or we turn to a pill, or we turn to a drug, because for a little while, we don't worry about it anymore. And our hunger is fulfilled, or so we think, because we're not thinking about it. But I think we'd all agree that that's a poison. Some people, we long for status. We long for people to look up to us. We long for people to think that we're important. We long for people to think that we're special. And if you look at our society, the thing that you will realize is the busier you are, the more important you are. I mean, that's what society tells us. I mean, the more busy you are, the more things that you're doing, the more stuff that you've got going on in your life, the more important you are, because so many people need you. So we just keep throwing our name in the hat for everything that comes along. I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it. And people ask you how you're doing, and you say, well, I'm so busy. And it's almost like it's a badge of honor. But we just keep filling ourselves in with more and more and more, and we hunger for that, and we would honestly believe that that has poisoned so many lives. You can look back and you can see people that will tell you, man, I was so busy, I missed my kids growing up, I missed everything, and now they don't want to talk to me, and it's awful. But we're hungering for this poison in our lives. And kind of let me set you up with where we're going today. We're going to look at John 6, and all of these I am statements that we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks all come from the book of John. But this morning we're looking at John chapter 6, and Jesus has just fed the 5,000. I mean, that's pretty miraculous in and of itself, but Jesus has just fed the 5,000. And what he does is he sends his disciples out in a boat. He says, you guys go ahead. I'll meet you there. And I love it because they don't even question how he's going to get there. They take the only boat and they go out and they're like, okay, Jesus. He just wants to get alone to pray. So he goes and he's praying, and it's a great story because Jesus comes and he walks on the water. And they're like, oh, it's a ghost. And he's like, no, it's just me. And he gets in the boat, right? And he goes to the other side. So when he gets to the other side, these people that were on the place where Jesus originally was, they're like, where's Jesus? Where is Jesus? And they start to look for him because, look, they realize that Jesus didn't get in the boat, and they realize the boat is gone. So like, Jesus must be here somewhere. He's got to be around here somewhere. I mean, that's just really easy thinking. I mean, the car's gone. Somebody has to be here. So they were like, where is he? So they start searching for him everywhere. They're looking for Jesus. And when they can't find him, they all of a sudden decide, well, he must have went to the other side. They can't find him anywhere, and they're like, well, he must be over there. He must have got over there with them somehow. So they get in their boats, and they follow after him to the other side. And that's where we're going to kind of pick up this story. In John chapter 6, verses 25, it says this. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And I love this because really what they're asking is, Rabbi, how did you get here, right? Like, we saw the boat gone. We know that they left without you. How in the world did you get from over there to over here? We had to row this boat, and I know you didn't walk all the way around because it would have taken forever. So how did you get here? And I love it because Jesus, he doesn't even try to answer their question. He's not like, well, I walked out on the water and they were there. He didn't do that. What Jesus does is he starts just really getting to the point. He's really going to dive into what's going on. He says this in verse 26. Very truly, I tell you, you were looking for me not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. He's like, listen, I know you're not here because of what you saw. I know you're not here because of all the stuff you saw me do and all the miracles you heard about that me doing. That's not why you're here. You're here because I filled your belly. You're here because the need that you had at that very moment, the hunger that you had, I filled it. That's why you're here. You're not here because you believe what I was doing. You're here because you said, hey, I've got a hunger. I want you to fill it now. And if we're honest, that's what some of us want from Jesus. I mean, if we're really, really honest, that's what some of us really want from Jesus. We just want him to fulfill our desires. We're much like these people. We come to Jesus and we have a desire, we have a need in our life, and we don't really care about anything else but Jesus taking care of that one area. They're like, I'm hungry, deal with that now. We're like, God, I need you to take care of this one area of my life. Fill that now. I don't want you to take care of the real problem and the relationship and having a relationship with you. I just want you to take care of this one area of my life. And other than that, I don't need you. And that's why they come to Jesus. And it goes on and it says this in verse 27. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. And listen, they're talking, and he's talking in a language that these people really understand. They're talking about, he's bringing up this imagery to this time when their people were walking through the wilderness. This time when their people were roaming around trying to get to the place that God had promised them. And they're walking, and God says, you know what? I will feed you. God says, I will feed you. And while his people are walking around in the wilderness, every day, manna, bread came down from heaven. And they had enough to eat. But he told his people, he said, you only take what you need for the day. Don't take any more. And when they took more than what they needed, if you've read the story, what you'll know is that it spoiled. So Jesus is bringing up all of this imagery that they would really know. These people are really taking a grip on what he's saying. They understand what Jesus is saying. He says, don't work for food that spoils, but food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father placed his seal of approval. He's saying, listen, all the other stuff you're searching for, all that stuff that you're really coming to me here about this morning, all that stuff that you want, all that stuff's going to burn up. It's not going to mean anything. It's going to spoil. All that food for your belly, it's not going to mean much. That desire that you have, that hunger that you have for social status, that's going to go away one day. Everything that you're doing to fulfill that, everything that you're going through, everything that you're going after to fulfill that, it's just going to spoil one day. Hey, that stuff that you're doing, that you're longing for your Father, you're longing after that, it's all going to burn up one day. It's not going to mean much of anything. Don't go after all that. Don't work for that. Instead, come after what I can give you. Come after what I have to offer you. Come after the stuff that will last forever. He's saying all that social status, that's what he'd be telling to us now. He's saying all that stuff that you're doing, trying to look important, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. Much like food, it will spoil, it will go bad. You don't need anything like that. Come after me. Come after me. I'm the bread that you need. Everything else is poison. And then in verse 28, they ask and they say, well, what must we do to do the works God requires? What do we have to do to get there? And Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. He's making it really simple for them. He's making it really, really simple. He said, all you got to do is believe in me. The one that's standing here in front of you. All you have to do is believe in me. But look at their response. They're about to respond in a way, and they can't get over the food aspect of it. They can't get over the desire they have, the hunger that they have right now. They're still holding on to what they think is most important. They're still holding on to the idea and the concept that they think is most important to their lives. And they start asking Jesus, hey, can you just give me something? Can you just give me something that I can accept? I want you to give me a vision. I want you to give it to me in a way that I can believe in it. A sign. Oh, God, Jesus, what I want you to do is I want you to give me a sign that's going to fill my hunger. And they say this, they say, what sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written. He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Hey, Jesus, I hear what you're saying. Jesus, I hear what you're saying about you being the man and I'm coming to you for everything that you need. I hear that. But if you just give me the food that I'm after, then I'll believe everything that you have to say. Hey, Jesus, if you just give me the food that I've came here for, I will believe whatever you have to say. And we say, well, that's kind of silly. But we say things like, hey, Jesus, if you just give me this job, I'll finally believe everything you told me. Hey, Jesus, if you just give me this job, I'll finally do whatever you ask me to do. Hey, Jesus, if you'll just restore this relationship, I'll really believe that you're real. Hey, Jesus, if you will cure this disease, I'll know that you're really there. Hey, Jesus, if you would just fill my hunger, I'll finally believe you. And Jesus says to them, he says, very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. He's saying, listen, guys, all that stuff you're longing for, that food, that job, everything that you're looking for, that person in your life that you think is going to fulfill your deepest desires, that job that you think is going to make everything better, everything that you're searching after, that's not it. That's not what you need. He says, all that stuff that you're talking about, if you get it, it comes from my Father anyway. All that stuff that you're looking for, it's not from you. It's not because you did something good. It all comes from my Father. If you read James 1:17, it says every good gift comes from the Father. So he says, hey guys, all that good stuff in your life, it's not because of something you did. It's because my Father poured it out on you. It's because he loves you so much. It's because he wants so much for you. So all that stuff, really, it comes from my Father. Every good thing in life comes from him. And he goes on, he says, for the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to this world. Sir, they said, always give us this bread. And all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb goes off in their head. All of a sudden, this thing goes off and they get it. I mean, they know all about Moses. They've been raised, and they know everything that Moses did. They believe Moses gave these people everything they needed, and they saw that. And they've been here standing there questioning God. And they're appealing to this fact that in the wilderness, they always had what they needed. Hey, Jesus, when the Father brought us through the wilderness, when we were searching around, they always gave me everything they needed. Those people always had everything they wanted. They always had everything they needed. And now we're hungry. We want more. And Jesus speaks to their heart. He says, you know what? It's not about Moses. You know what? It's not about what you think it is. It's not about all this stuff coming down. It's about the Father who actually gave it to you. Moses had nothing to do with it. My Father did it all. And he says, and the food that I have, unlike that stuff before, it'll never spoil. What I'm trying to give you, it will never go bad. All the stuff that you're longing after, all the stuff that you're trying to come at me for, all that stuff means nothing. It will all go bad in the end, but me, I will never spoil. I'll always be good. I'll always have the things that you need. I will always have that. So they say, give it to me. Whatever it is you're talking about, this bread that's never going to spoil, this stuff that leads to eternal life, just give it to me. And then he says this in verse 35, he says, I'm the bread of life. He says, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. And whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. He says, if you come to me, I have everything you need. If you come to me, all those other things that you're thinking about, all those other things that you're longing after, it really won't mean much of anything. If you come to me, I will have everything you need. And he goes on in verse 36 and he says, but as I told you, you have seen me, and still you don't believe. And we hear this story and we give these people such a hard time. I mean, they were walking around with Jesus. They saw everything that he did. They know everything that he did. They were there. I mean, they saw him feed the 5,000 people. They saw all that stuff. How could they not believe? And we start to think bad about them. How are those people so dumb? We're the same people. We see God moving in the lives of people around us. We see miraculous things happen and we just say, oh, that's good for you. Does God still really work? And we've turned ourselves into the same people. We still see God move today. There are people that are sitting here in this church that could tell you miraculous stories about how God has touched their bodies, how God has done miraculous things. And we know all about them, and all of a sudden we're just like, oh, it's no big deal, it just happens. And Jesus says, you've seen everything I've done. You see everything that I still do, and yet you still don't believe. You've seen everything that I am capable of, and yet you still don't believe. You don't believe in me. And he goes on in verse 37 and he says, all those the Father gives me will come to me. And whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life. I will raise them up at the last day. Man, Jesus is ruffling everything that you could ever imagine right here. I mean, he's saying some stuff that is pretty hard to swallow. He's telling them everything that you've learned, everything that you ever know, everything that you've ever heard and been taught in school. It doesn't matter. All you need is me. There is no other way. I mean, that's what Jesus is telling him. He said, there is no other way to the Father but through me. All those sacrifices that you think that are going to get you there, it means nothing. The only way to get there is through me. He's declaring amazing things. He's declaring really significant things. He's saying, all you need is me. And there would have been people there that would have been like, there's no way that you're the answer. There would have been people there that would have said, man, that's not right. There's no way that can be right. There has to be other ways. I can go and I can sacrifice a couple lambs. That's what the Torah told me. And I can go and I can do all this stuff. And he's like, no, it's just me. And it would have been offensive to some people. And today we tell the world, hey, there's only one way. There's only one way to get to the Father. There's only one way to get to heaven, and that's through Jesus. And when we say that in today's society, we're just bigots. We're small-minded little people. We can't get past a fiction book because we just don't really look at real science, and we're just stupid, and we're small-minded and closed-minded and everything else. There's only one way. And it still has the same effect on some people that it did then. Surely there must be another way. Surely if I just do whatever I'm supposed to do and I'm a good person, that'll be good enough. Surely that's all I need to do to get to heaven. It has nothing to do with Jesus. And Jesus was telling him, he's like, I'm the bread of life. I'm the only thing that's going to get you there. And that message still resonates today. I'm going to read a few verses to you that says this in verse 48. I'm the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. He said, look, all that food that they got, all that stuff, everything they had, everything you say and you think about them, they had everything they needed. God provided it for them, but they still died. He said, I am the living bread. I'm the living bread that came down from heaven, not just this bread that spoils and goes away. I'm the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever. Whoever takes part of me will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. They didn't understand that quite yet. Then the Jews began to argue sharply among themselves, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? How's he going to do that? How's he going to do that? How's he going to give us his flesh? This is crazy. This guy's crazy. He can't do that for us. Verse 53, Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, it never spoils, and my blood is real drink, it never goes bad. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. If you take part of him, he lives in you, and you live in him, and you live forever, he's saying. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. Not because of you or because of something that you've done, but because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors, yep, they ate all that bread you're talking about. They had everything they needed. They took of it and they died. But whoever takes part of me will live forever. And the problem becomes with you and with me is that we try to fulfill our hunger with everything else. We try to fulfill the hunger in the deepest parts of our spirit with everything else. We say, hey, God, what about some of that bread that Moses rained down? Give me some of that. Hey, God, why don't you help me to get to this job I need? That's what I really need. That's what's going to fulfill me. We tell people, we say, yep, Jesus, he's the only way to heaven. Jesus, he's the only way to heaven, but do we really believe that? Do we really live our lives in a way that the only thing that's going to get us there is heaven, or do we still live in a way that we think, hey man, maybe if I do enough, I can get myself there? Maybe if I just read my Bible just a little bit more, that's going to get me there. Do we realize it's all up to us giving our lives to Jesus? He's the only way. He's the only bread. So what does that mean for me? That means those teenage girls need to find that love in Jesus. Instead of searching for it in some boy, they need to find that love in Jesus. Go to him for all of your deepest desires. You say, that sounds great, Pastor. I can't see Jesus. I can't touch him. I can't hold him. He can't wrap his arms around me. And I tell you, yes, he can. Talk to some people that have been walking for Jesus for a really long time, and I'll tell you, there are moments in my life when I'm laying my heart down before Jesus, when you are sure that the Father's arms are holding you, and there's never any doubt. For those teenage boys that are trying to figure out, man, what am I going to do? How am I going to live my life? How am I going to be a man? What do I got to do to get there? Go to the Father. The Bible is full of tons of examples of men who lead their families, who do the right way. Go to the Father. But we live in a society, and I don't get it, where for some reason, men have this idea if they go to a God for help, if they go to a God and they put God first, it makes us less of a man. We're supposed to be able to handle it on our own. We don't need God. I'm stronger than all that. You're not. The only way you're going to get there, the only way we're ever going to be the fathers and the husbands that we need to be, is if we eat of Jesus. For those of you that are searching after and chasing that social status, you're never going to get there. It's never going to be enough. You're always going to find something else that you can add. It's always going to be something else that you can take on. You're always just going to be able to be more and more and more and more busy. It's never going to be enough unless you go to Jesus. He says the first will be last and the last will be first. It didn't even make any sense. It's time for you to go to Jesus. Stand with me this morning. I think if we're all being honest, there's parts of each of us that we've all been going after something of this world to fulfill our hunger. There's some of us where there's just parts of this life that we're like, oh, the world can fulfill that need. I'm going to go after it. And this morning you need to know that there's nothing of this world that's going to fulfill the hunger in you that Jesus can take care of. If you're longing for something more, if you have a hunger inside of yourself, the only answer is Jesus. Nothing else will do. You have to run to him this morning. And imagine what this world would look like if instead of going after the things of this world, we were chasing after Jesus with our hearts and our lives as much as we are everything else. Father, this morning, we just give it all up to you. Jesus, this morning, I lay my life before you. Lord, this morning I come to you humbly. Lord, I give all my hungers to you, Lord. Fulfill my desires with your life. Lord, help me to chase after you and you alone. Jesus, this morning, I give it all up. And I ask you to fill me here this morning. With every head bowed and every eye still closed, this morning I realize that Some of you here, you may have been walking through this life, and today you're just hearing about Jesus in a whole new way. You're hearing about him in a way that you never heard before. You've been thinking that, if I'm just good enough, I can get there. I kind of had this little meaningless relationship with him. I would have told you I was a Christian. I would have had him at arm's reach. But all of a sudden this morning, I realize I need to take hold of Jesus. I need to give my life to him. I need to invite him in to my heart. If that's you this morning, you say, you know what, I need to give my life to Jesus. Would you just raise your hand? Nobody's looking around. I'll give you just another minute. Hey, Jesus, it's all about you. This morning, church, it's time to run after Jesus. It's time this morning to go after him as hard as everything else that you've been going after in this world. It's time to say, you know what, Jesus, you're all I need. So, Father, I pray for everyone here this morning. Father, I pray that they would have a deep passion for you. And Father, I pray for everyone that they've written down, every name that they've nailed to this cross, Father, I pray that you would move upon their lives. Father, I pray that you would give those of us here the words to speak and the things to say so that we could get them to just come see what you have in store for them. Father, it's not about having the answers. It's about knowing the one who does. So this morning, Father, I pray that you would just move upon our hearts. Father, I pray that you would help us to walk away from here a changed people. It's in the mighty and precious and holy name of Jesus I pray. Amen.